Dear Professor Ignatieff, members of the board, dear families and friends, dear members of the faculty and staff, I present to you the class of 2017 of the Master of Public Policy. With the 140 graduates, that wasn't bad, by the way, I also present to you the very first 24 graduates of the Master of International Affairs. There you are. And last but not least, 7 graduates of the Hertie School's PhD program in governance. Since there are only 7, I think we need to help them. So. Ladies and gentlemen, together they constitute the largest graduating cohort in the school's history. We were just little more than 20 in 2007, and you now number over 170 today. And as I look upon you, you come from 40 countries. It is just a very nice sign of the international nature of the Hertie School that we have so many different groups and nationalities at the school. And I do share with you, I think, a sense of pride and accomplishment on this very special occasion. During your time at the Hertie School, you will have experienced many memorable moments both inside and outside the school, as we learned last night, by the way, during the cabaret. And I do hope that you will look back at your time here with great fondness and perhaps even a little nostalgia. Here are some facts about you. 25 of you completed a dual degree program with one of our 5 partner universities. 12 participated in the Atlantis program, and 23 of you went abroad for an exchange. Over 50 of you took a professional year, not only in this country, but in many others, be they in Albania, be they in Costa Rica, Kosovo, the United States, or Vietnam. Around 70 of you completed internships in some 20 countries, going as far afield as Puerto Rico, Myanmar, or South Africa. You are an exceptional group of graduates. You generally speak 3 to 4 languages, hold 2 degrees, and already studied, volunteered, or worked in 3 or more countries. You are polyglot, well-educated, and mobile. You are a talented group of young people indeed. We will remember you, the MPP and MIA student class of 2017, for many things, and allow me just to mention 3. First, the Hertie School Social Response Group. Students of the class of 2017, namely Colette Beukman, John Torino, and Pamela Cardenas, founded a group which organizes volunteering opportunities. The city of Berlin recognized 10 Hertie students, all part of the response group, with an award for commitment and contributions to assisting volunteers. And I think they deserve applause for that. And then there is the International Relations Club. 2 of our first MIM graduates, Christopher Norman and Anas Attal, founded the club as a student forum for discussing international affairs, diplomacy, and global issues. And last but not least, the Governance Post, our online student policy magazine. Special thanks here go to the entire editorial team and the executive editors, namely Nathan Appelman, Lisa Gao, and Clara Maria Schröder, and of course, Isabella Vera. Thank you so much. As of today, dear graduates, you will become alumni of the school and join a growing network that already numbers over 1,200. Like these alumni, you will seek and pursue careers in a wide range of fields, with one-third of you working for governments and international agencies, one-third in the corporate world, and another third in civil society organizations like NGOs and foundations. And if past records are a guidance, virtually all of you will have found a job within a few months of graduating. This is a great relief, I think, to the parents in the room. And last year, and this is a very proud fact, last year we had a near-perfect placement record for our graduates. So let me tell you how delighted we are to see also 7 PhD students complete their degrees today. Congratulations on your achievements. We're very proud that all of you already have good positions lined up, either as assistant professors, postdoctoral fellows, or as researchers at research institutes and foundations. Sure, I speak for all of us here that when I say that we're really looking forward to seeing how your career in academia unfolds, and in many ways, you're now one of us. So welcome to the club. Special thanks also Special thanks goes to the staff at the school from various departments. First, the student affairs team, who worked so hard to help you get settled at the school and in Berlin. Then there is the graduate programs team, who tended to your academic needs over the last 2 or 3 years. The career services team, who supported you in internships, professional years, and career advice. And, of course, the communications team, who effortlessly worked to make today's graduation event and the many other events that we have at the school throughout the academic year such a pleasant success. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce today's commencement speaker, Michael Ignatieff. Michael Ignatieff is president of the Central European University in Budapest. Prior to that, he was professor at the Harvard Kennedy School, served in the Canadian Parliament, and was leader of the Liberal Party of Canada. He received his doctorate in history from Harvard and held academic posts at Cambridge and the Universities of Toronto and British Columbia. Michael is an international commentator on contemporary issues of democracy, human rights, and governance. He's an award-winning writer, teacher, politician, and historian, a historian with a very deep knowledge of Central and Eastern Europe. Today, he will speak to us about the importance of academic freedom, a topic that couldn't be more timely. As you may be aware, in April of this year, the President of Hungary signed into law an amendment of the Hungarian National Higher Education Act, which targets the Central European University directly and restricts in very serious ways academic freedom. It is no coincidence, ladies and gentlemen, that universities and public policy schools in particular become target of anti-democratic illiberal forces. Schools such as ours are relatively independent spaces for reflection, for research, for teaching and debating about a wide range of issues about which you can have rather different views. Our vital role as a school of public policy, as a school of governance, is listening to and debating such conflicting views and sorting out the facts and assessing the evidence. The added value of public policy schools is research and debate about policy choices that directly affect citizens, considering the norms and the normative foundations which these alternatives are based on and what their implications might be. Therefore, threatening the Central European University means threatening all of us. It sends a terrible sign of endangering academic freedom worldwide. We at the Hertie School will support you. We will stand by you, President Ignatieff. May the Central European University continue to prosper and live up to its mission and be, I quote, a source of support for building open and democratic societies that respect human rights, and human dignity. Professor Ignatieff, we are most honored to have you here with us today. Thank you for taking the time to come to the Hertie School and to speak to our graduates and their families and friends about such an important and timely topic. The floor is yours.
It's a great honor to be here. Last time I was here was for a concert. I never imagined I'd be standing in front of you. It's a pretty impressive, awe-inspiring sight. But fortunately, I have the Ambassador of Canada here to protect me. Merci, Monsieur Dion. I must make my country proud, at least, anyway. I take the honor of addressing you as a sign of solidarity between two institutions. It means a great deal to me personally, and it means a tremendous amount to a distinguished group of faculty, staff, and students and alumni in a city that's pretty close by, Budapest. Wonderful place. Hope you'll come. I hope all of you will feel welcome in Budapest. We're on Nador Utca 15. We serve a pretty good espresso. Anytime you come by, you'll be most welcome to see you. I'm also aware that I am a kind of obstacle standing in the way of dessert. That is, dessert for you is getting your degrees, hugging your loved ones, going out afterwards. I understand we're going to fling these beautiful things in the air. There's a lot of joy ahead, and I know we're going to get to the joy. I'm going to be a little somber before we get there, but I'm aware that a man who stands in the way of dessert has only a limited amount of time before I exhaust your patience. I do want to talk directly to the class of 2017 because you stand on the cusp. It's a moment to pause in your life and think about standing between the world of academic life and the professional life outside that you're just about to join. And I want to use this moment to talk to you a little bit about the relationship between the world of the university and the world that you're about to join. As my host has so kindly said, I'm the president of a university under attack, fighting to remain a free institution in Budapest, a free institution just like you. And our battle has become a bit of a European and even global cause célèbre. But I do want to say something particularly to Turkish colleagues in the room, to Russian colleagues in the room. We understand we're not the only university that's under attack. Across Turkey, universities are being padlocked, professors are being purged. In St. Petersburg, one of our sister universities is constantly struggling against one ingenious, malicious attempt to close it after another. So we're not alone. CEU is not a special case. There are too many examples of this, and I want to focus your attention on it for a minute. Those are the threats from without, but I want, before I talk about those threats from without, to talk about a much more difficult subject, which is the threats to academic freedom from within, because we need to think about those as well. Just this year at Middlebury College in Vermont, a crowd shouted down a conservative author because they didn't like conservative views. In Oregon, a professor was harassed for refusing to join a protest against racism. Here in Berlin and in Dresden, professors have been bullied for conservative views or for attempting to explain the appeal of the extreme far right in Germany. Now, it's the heart and soul of universities, this one, my one, to be critical. But we have to be courageous enough to be critical of ourselves and the action of some of our members. And the young people responsible for shouting down people they don't want to listen to I think, confuse criticism and harassment. And there's a lesson for all of us here. There is no pleasure in life more satisfying than a little bit of righteous indignation, especially when it's fueled by political conviction. I've been in the throes of righteous indignation in politics, and what I'll tell you is that it can lead you wrong. It can cut you off from the honest self-reflection, which ought to be the core of university life. And it's especially dangerous, this kind of righteousness, when it's couched in the language of anti-militarism, anti-sexism, or anti-fascism. So, and the still darker message here, and one we all need to think about, is that those who sometimes do freedom most harm are those who benefit from it most. So let's stand back from these controversies for a minute and then ask, what is this academic freedom that is threatened from within, in the examples I gave you, and threatened from without by states, corporate interests, other interests? And we need to be honest about this, because we take academic freedom for granted and sometimes abuse it. But out there are a lot of people who think about academic freedom, those people who are far away from our seminar rooms, never got a chance to be in our research labs or in our libraries. Many of these people regard academic freedom as a privilege, and a dubious privilege at that. Now, those of us who live inside universities and who've benefited from a fantastic education, we know how privileged we actually are. But there's a discomfort about our privilege, and there should be some discomfort. Our salaries are paid for by citizens who may never have had the chance to study with us. We need to always be able to justify ourselves to our fellow citizens, and to ensure that the doors of our privileged places are always open, that we communicate our research in the most accessible manner possible to our fellow citizens, and that we do everything to remove any barriers that exclude our fellow citizens and our fellow human beings from the chance to learn with us. If we have privileges, if we are privileged, then those privileges come with responsibilities, and we need to discharge them conscientiously. Let's deal with another privilege which we don't talk about very much, which is our job security. I'm now talking to tenured professors. If you ask people on the street what academic freedom means, sometimes they'll say it means professors have a job for life. They have job security. They have a job security that none of us working stiffs ever have, okay? And so we need to face that concern about academic freedom directly. We need to remind the public, the democratic public, that tenure protects them too, by defending the right to pursue unpopular research and take unpopular positions. One of the ways we need to think about academic freedom is that it's a counter-majoritarian guarantee of a free society. It's like the free press. It's like independent judiciary. And like all privileges, academic freedom can be abused, but many of the professors in this room have used it to advance social knowledge, advance learning. Many of you will remember these professors for the rest of your life because they did their jobs. They didn't abuse tenure. They used it to expand the common and public good. Tenure is not the only issue that is unpopular when we begin talking about academic freedom. One of the places where academic freedom gets a bad name is on the television, or on the radio, or in the social media. You talk to ordinary people and they will say, the thing that drives me crazy about those experts, they get up on television, they talk down to us, they talk about us, and they don't know the first thing about us at all. That pontification of experts has done academic freedom a lot of harm. And I'll confess, as someone who's sometimes been labeled a public intellectual, I do have to confess, since it's fess up time here, a couple of occasions when I was on television and talked about stuff that I really wasn't competent to talk about. The message for you, young leaders of tomorrow, is stick to what you know. Be honest enough to ask yourself, what do I truly know something about, and talk about that, and actually shut up about the rest. These are the disciplines of using freedom and intellectual freedom wisely. Now, we know that the popular dislike of expertise is exploited by politicians everywhere you look. The deliberate cultivation of suspicion and hatred towards academic life and towards expertise. This is a central element in what we call populism, pitting the people, honest, plain-speaking, unlettered, against the complacent, entitled minority in this room. All of us need to stand up against this politics of bad faith. We need to say clearly, humbly, but insistently that our societies would cease functioning without the academic and scientific knowledge produced in universities around the world. And populist leaders who win votes by despising experts on electoral platforms, and each of you can choose your favorite example of this. We know what happens when they get into office. They're fumbling around in confusion and darkness because they've despised the experts and the expertise that allows them actually to govern honestly and fairly. So we need to stand up to that. But it's not enough to defend our expertise if all the public hears is a defense of our corporate privileges. Because the deep problem here I'm trying to get at is an erosion of the connection between academic freedom and the freedom of all citizens. If universities are going to regain the democratic support that they need, it's important for all of us inside to respond honestly to the criticism we hear from outside, instead of wincing in silent complicity when our colleagues abuse the freedoms we need to defend. I've loved university life since I was an undergraduate at the University of Toronto, but I can't begin to count the number of times I've sat in a seminar room and listened to my fellow colleagues, some of my fellow friends, engage in complex, self-referential, congratulatory language games that have no serious engagement with stubborn reality at all. And we need to be gutsy enough as colleagues and friends to admit that some academics give academic freedom a bad name. We need to be self-critical if we're going to defend this freedom. But equally, lest you think I'm succumbing to the populist tide, we need to stand up for the great ones, because there are some great ones. Every one of us who's done graduate work has great ones, people we remember with deep emotion. I think of Judith Sklar, I think of Isaiah Berlin, I think of Albert Hirschman, I think of David Landis. And there's a great one in this audience who I just met a minute ago again, Klaus Offe. These are people who add luster, who add distinction to freedom, because their work expresses a moral obligation to the truth and a deep commitment to clarity, a sense that clarity is a moral obligation to your fellow citizens. These are the ones whose use of freedom adds luster to our own. Now, I've said something in criticism inside because it seems to me that's what we need to do to be a living community, to be critical of ourselves. And let me talk a little bit about the threats from without. I did not want to use this platform to rehearse what the British call my little local difficulty in Budapest. I can only say that negotiations may be underway between the government of Hungary and the governor of the state of New York, which is where we are accredited. And I want those negotiations to succeed, and I want to resume the daily life of universities. It seems a long time ago I had a daily life, but I passionately want to resume all of that daily life as soon as possible. But I do want to reflect, especially for the students here, on what that episode has taught me about freedom. I think I've learned something perfectly simple. It's a blinding cliche, but when you get as old as I am, you understand one thing about life. Some cliches just happen to be true. Academic freedom, like all freedoms, is worth what you're prepared to pay for it. And those who don't fight for your freedom will surely lose it. That's lesson number one from our battle. How have we been able to fight? Not simply because we have a wonderfully inventive student body, a courageous alumni, fantastic professors. We've also had the freedom that comes from a private endowment. Let me be very clear. We have the institutional sinews to resist and fight. But that comes with another tension in academic freedom that needs to be honestly discussed. Academic freedom is not just freedom from the state, it's also freedom from the people who pay your bills. It's freedom from the philanthropies who support you. It's a double freedom against private interests that may impede the freedom of research and teaching, and it's freedom from the state. And I come out of the battle for CEU more convinced than ever that financial independence of universities is critically important to their academic freedom. Institutions that are totally dependent on government funding have a tough time standing up to the government when it gets tough. One of the things that has been inspiring to me about our battle is that institutions exclusively dependent on public support in Hungary have had the guts to stand up beside us. And I salute because they've actually paid something to defend academic freedom. But the foundations of academic freedom are always more secure when they rest on a number of pillars. Let me move towards a conclusion. Our freedom, the freedom of academic institutions, can never be separated from the health of democratic institutions. It has been the weakness of democratic institutions in Hungary that has rendered us so uniquely vulnerable. There's no ivory tower where we're safe, folks. Unless we stand up for the democracy that protects us all, we will be picked off. That's a lesson I have learned from the Hungarian story. As you graduate today, you will be a generation that is called to defend democracy from demagogues, from populists, possibly, I hope not, from fascists. But the most dangerous enemy of all may be indifference. The indifference deep in your own hearts and souls, the indifference in all of us towards democracy. And when we become indifferent to democracy, democracy begins to die, and with it, our freedom. And let's just remember once again why we care about democracy at all. Because it's a noble ideal of community. The idea of a group of human beings forming a community, ruling themselves by consent, and forming an arrangement to care for each other through time. That's what a democracy is. And where, I ask you, did that idea of democracy first take root? It took root in the medieval communities of scholars. It took root, in fact, in universities, in many of the other places it took root, but it took root first in universities. Think about this. In the community of scholars, in the great medieval universities of Bologna, Salamanca, Oxford, Cambridge, Sorbonne, Heidelberg, Tübingen, and the great early modern universities of Eastern Europe, which we must never forget, Charles University in Prague, Jagiellonian in Krakow, Eötvös Loránd in Budapest. These are institutions that have been going for centuries. And over centuries, they've managed to keep alive the idea of self-rule, communities governing themselves in freedom. And that is the kernel of the very idea of democracy. And the university should be the epitome, the living embodiment of democracy in action. As future leaders, you may be called on to defend freedom, so you better know what it is. You better know what democracy is, why it matters to you. And it's worth remembering, as I have discovered painfully, that freedom is never secure. We must battle against its enemies within. We must battle against our enemies without. But the outcome of any battle for yourself always turns on convincing your fellow citizens that when you battle for yourself, you are always and ultimately battling for them. Thank you.